This episode is brought to you by freedadcourse.com. You are always one conversation away from changing your life, and the power of hello is something that I subscribe to every single day, and I'm always saying hello to new people everywhere I go. Increasing your opportunity, increasing your connection, and getting access to the solutions to the problems that you are facing, whether you're on active duty or just beginning your veteran transition, or even transitioning out for 20 years. On the other side of hello are the solutions that you're looking for. Again, head on over to freedadcourse.com. Get your 5-episode audio course to create more connection, create more friendships, and get back to living the life that you're trying to design.
Dory 1, this is Fire Team Delta. Dad's coming home.
Welcome to the Military Veteran Dad Podcast, where it is our mission to bring every dad home. I am your host, Ben Killoy. I'm a United States Marine veteran, husband, and a father. We will bring authentic conversations to inspire action in your life so we can close the gap between the dad you are today and the dad you want to be tomorrow. This is the Military Veteran Dad Podcast. Today on the show, we have Kyle Huston. He's a good friend of mine. He's a United States Marine, husband, dad. He joined the Marine Corps as a enlisted man from Ohio, went to the Ohio State University through the MECEP program, and is now a captain in the Marine Corps, currently stationed in Okinawa, Japan with his wife and 3 amazing kids. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here, Ben.
Kyle, could you describe a little bit what your family looks right now and any gaps in that intro?
So like you said, I've been married for the past 11 years. I've got 2 sons, 7 and 5, and a daughter who keeps me on my toes, and she's about to be 4 in January. So yeah, it's been in Okinawa for about a month now. So transitioning, the jet lag is finally passed, and we're going to be here for 3 years and looking forward to get everything we can out of this island.
And the funny part is Okinawa, where we and you both met, that we were both stationed there over 10 years ago when I was an enlisted man, and you were also an enlisted man before you crossed over. And
yes.
we chewed the same dirt and became friends, and actually helped you through when you lost your dad, and even was in your wedding when I got home.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our old stomping grounds. Now, I will say that I have not returned to the old, Western World, that country line dancing club that you drugged me to.
I did not drag you. You wanted to go. You were just waiting for someone to push you.
Absolutely not.
And then you were like a natural.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I got 2 left feet.
No. I'll pay someone over there if I have to.
I don't know.
Have you even confirmed if it's open still?
No, I have no need to. I'm not going to. I can't 2-step like you. If I can't do it as good as you, I'm not even going to try.
I'll Google map it for you just to see if it's still there. I'm sure it is, because I'm sure there's still enough Texans over there that need to dance.
Probably.
Kyle, when you hear the words "come home," what do those mean to you?
So I would say coming home for me, there's so many distractions in the world for us, as dads, or even as human beings now. We have the wonderful technology of smartphones, which is amazing, and it's not necessarily evil in and of itself, but man, it can be such a distraction that, you get home from a hectic day at work, and sometimes you just want to unwind. And an easy way for us to do that now is just getting distracted in a smartphone or your tablet or TV or something, and completely neglecting the people that need you most. As a Marine, our Marines, as a leader, our Marines need us. But I would say even more importantly, our family needs us. Our wives need us. Our children absolutely need us, especially in today. So coming home, in my opinion, is putting as many distractions away as possible, having focused and dedicated time, that we're intentional about what we do with our families, whether it's, something as simple but almost seems archaic in generations now, is having dinner at the table. A lot of people, we dinner watching TV, and what we've found is we've invited people over, friends over, and even friends of the kids that come over, and they're blown away by the fact that we have dinner around the table. So I think that's something that we try to guard as best as possible for our family, knowing that even if it's something simple as eating a meal together and talking, that's extremely important. And I hate having any type of electronic at the dinner table. Like, we have to put those away, focus on our family, for that short amount of time. If that's at a minimum, that's what we guard and protect.
I love the dinner table. It's the same for me growing up on a farm. That was always chores were done. Dad would come in, dinner was on the table. And so it was kind of a natural progression to always be there. And so it's natural progression for me now as a dad, but it is something that, especially even the kids that are in later in life, there's so many sports. And as I have 3 younger kids, and I am scared to death when sports eats me alive. I'm just scared to have my life consumed by sports. And I mean, I meet dads that they're traveling across 3 states over every weekend for baseball. And I'm just like, I can't even imagine that type of commitment. And those are the commitments that get in the way of that connection at the dinner table.
Absolutely. I grew up playing baseball for pretty much every sport all year round. We have sports going on. And it's I enjoyed my childhood growing up playing sports, but I've, done some reflection on whether I want that for my family or not. I'm all about sports. And, actually my 5-year-old's getting ready to start his first year of T-ball, and he's super pumped, and he's actually pretty good at it. So, but what I've, and I talked to an old coach of mine probably a year or 2 ago, and one of his regrets was not taking his son to do other things other than sports, but going to a campground and just camping out, or going hunting or fishing or something where it's just him and his son. He's like, we had great times playing baseball, but man, we missed out on a lot traveling all over the place. So I think there's got to be a balance. Sports are great, and I enjoy them. I can't wait to watch my kids play. But I think dial it down from what I played growing up to allow our family to connect and to get closer as we grow as a family.
I'm a big believer that kids spell love time, and so forth, called them time bombs, and they're quick hacks to help you make an impact quickly. What are some few time bombs that you use to make an impact with your kids that are the simple things that we usually overcomplicate as dads, but have the hugest impact on your kids because it's just you and him spending time?
Yeah. So one example comes to mind. We were in Maryland, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen that Disney movie Up, or Pixar, whatever it is. Where they, at the very end, where they're counting different color cars. And I was like, I'll try that with my oldest. He was probably 5 or 6 at the time. So I took him in town with me, and we stopped at Taco Bell and got just a couple quick things, and we sat on I had a tonneau cover on my truck, and I purposely backed it into the parking lot where we could see the road. And so we sat on the tonneau cover, eating, just a quick taco, and had a drink, and we were counting. I picked what color car I was going to count, and he picked his color, and he ended up beating me. But he talked about that forever. And then we'd be driving down the road randomly other days, and he'd just start counting his color car again, and we just pick it up. It's just the small things that, made a huge impact on him, and something he still remembers to this day.
And I think because we're in such an information overload, I feel that we naturally want to think of something complicated because we see other people maybe doing big things. Yeah. But man, that moment that you just described, I have those moments with my daughter and my son that they remember the craziest moment that we've done. And it's just crazy of how it comes back up out of nowhere. 2 years later, they're talk about it. And it's really, that's what you remember? But those are the moments that they take with them, and as the memories that go on. It's not the extra cartoon. It's not the extra Paw Patrol.
Oh no.
It's the silly counting cars eating a taco.
Yeah, absolutely. And so my 5-year-old, I was talking about baseball. He is super excited about this season. He's kind of nervous, cause what if I don't know everything? But the time change, which doesn't actually happen over here, but the days are getting shorter. So it's getting dark outside much faster, and to keep my son and me out of trouble with my wife, because I wanted to practice some skills with him. I actually got a wiffle ball, and we'll practice. I'll throw grounders to him in the hallway of our house, and we'll play catch. If he hits a wall or something like that, no big deal. It doesn't actually do any damage, but he looks forward to practicing with me, and I'll make games out of it and everything. If it gets past him and hits the door, he loses points, or he's got to do a quick sprint up and down the hallway or something. And it's simple stuff like that. You don't need, anything extravagant to make such an impact on your kids, which is great. So you see everything on Instagram and people's perfect lives on there, and you try to keep up with the Joneses, you're going to be spinning your wheels. because what they're not posting are the imperfect things that are going on in their lives, but that we all face.
Yeah. Even the water parks. I remember like 2 years ago trying to think, do we go to a water park? Do we not go to a water park? Which water park we pick? And I ultimately picked, they're not going to want a big water park. And so I'm just going to waste a bunch of money. So we found a Holiday Inn that had this like pirate ship inside of it. And we went there for like 3 years in a row. And it was the perfect place. And they talk about it still to this day of that silly pirate ship. And it's a good mind. It's something good to be mindful. I'm always more mindful of it these days of like, is this really something they want, or is this just me inflating it? Even going to the silly library is something that they love. Yeah. It's like, can we go to the library? It's like,
yeah. And I really enjoy running now. I never really used to, but so one thing I started doing is on my run route, if I come past a flower bush, like wildflowers or anything, my daughter is obsessed with flowers. I'll pick like a couple quick flowers, take it home with me off my run, and I come in and like her face just lights up when I hand her these little flowers. So,
that's definitely something she's gonna remember.
Absolutely.
Her boyfriend's gonna be screwed because the day he comes home without flowers, where's my flowers?
Setting him up for failure, I guess. Yeah. So.
Or maybe you can give him a hint that first date or that first dance. Make sure you have flowers.
If he's the type of guy I want her to be around, of course.
If not, that's a quick way out. If you don't give him that advice.
Yeah, we're talking like 40 years from now. So, I don't have to really worry about that for too much longer. So, when
your kids are 30, what do you want them to remember and say to their friends about you? What do they want? What do you want them to brag about? My dad was this when they're 30.
Almost some self-reflection on that question. I kind of asked, well, what do I treasure the most about my dad? And what I really, my dad was a hard worker. He would get up at like 3:34 in the morning every morning to do the farm chores and then get to work, and then staying up, 9 or 10, 11 o'clock at night, getting other things done. And, but what I remember the most is like, he was always at every one of our games. Like he do whatever he had to come to one of our games. And, in the military, that's extremely tough. And there's been times where I've had to miss a practice or even a game at times. But I want the principle of that is just being present and doing everything you possibly can to be as present as often as you can. So that's what I want my kids to remember me is I fight to spend as much time with them as I possibly can. So that with that comes sacrifice. We were talking earlier. I don't go golfing all the time anymore. I love golf, but at the stage, my kids aren't really at that age they can do that. So I put that on the back burner. And I don't have a handicap of -3, so or handicap of 3. But to me, that's still worth it.
Will just have to wait.
Until I'm 60, and then I can become a master, of course. No, but doing that, even though I'm sacrificing, let's say golf, for example, there are other things I enjoy that I can incorporate my kids in. Whether it's hunting or fishing. I enjoy doing those things, so I'll take my kids with me. And so I love homesteading. So gardening, you better believe I'm getting my kids out there, and we'll make games out of planting, vegetables and stuff. So sacrificing in certain arenas, but then picking up other things that my kids can enjoy with me. And then you can teach them life lessons along the way with so many of those things.
And the questions they ask are always stuff that you don't even think about, but these are the ones that they're trying to fill in the gaps in. Even Marine Corps push-ups. I remember I'll do a couple push-ups in the living room, and they love joining in. So like you can, even fitness, something you're like, I don't have the time, but it's really, if you make time to make it together, you can actually teach them how to incorporate fitness in their life and have it as be something that's natural in their life versus something that they have to figure out when they're 30 of how to incorporate.
Exactly. And you mentioned that, but I just recently got into running, and during some of my training, because I just did a trail fest through Vacation Races, which I highly recommend. It was a great time. But while I was training, my oldest son started picking up on running, and he'd asked if I could, he could do a run with me. And of course, he can't keep up with my pace and go nearly as long. So what I would do is I'd go out and do my regular run and then come back and have a little bit left in my tank. And I'd take him for like a mile, maybe 2 miles, slowing my pace down so that he could keep up and encouraging him and teaching him how to do a pace. Well, we signed up for a 5K together, and I ran with him and he ended up taking second place in his age division. And I mean, he was on cloud nine. Like, they called his name to go get his, red ribbon. And I mean, he could have won $1 million, and he was just as happy. And then of course my middle son started seeing his older brother doing it and me. And so he wanted to go on runs with me, and we go on shorter runs with him. And yeah, and how much does it cost to go running? People do barefoot running. So if you're saying I can't afford the fancy tennis shoes, your excuse is gone. People go barefoot running if they have to. So, you don't have to make $1 million to go buy fancy running shoes. Just get out there and go run with your kids. They have a lot of energy. And I think the more that you can burn their energy, I think you can take care of some of the problems and issues. If you keep them cooped up, they're going to have some issues. So let them burn off some of that energy.
That reminds me of a podcast with an ex-Navy SEAL, Larry Yach, and he talks about when the growth mindset that you always want to keep growing. But as a child, parents often get this backwards, that we reward result of what they achieved and not the effort. And when you reward the effort or the result, they get excited about that. But the next time they level up, they're going to be defeated because they no longer get that same result, and they think that they're a failure. So focusing on always rewarding the effort, like you did a good job. And even if you got fifth, sixth, whatever, rewarding the effort allows them to keep moving. That result is a tricky one that gets them in a bag of mixed emotions about what happens when they don't succeed in the same fashion that you rewarded last time.
That's a really good point. I hadn't heard that, but that makes perfect sense. Absolutely. It's not, what did they say? It's not necessarily the destination, it's the journey. The results aren't
going to what you measure your life by. It's the effort that you put into it. I remember teaching my daughter a game. I don't remember what game we were playing, maybe Candyland, and she lost. And I remember telling, it doesn't matter who wins these games. It doesn't matter who tries the hardest. And that's the only way you need to measure whether you won or lost, is whether who tried the hardest in that game. And she remembers that even to this day, she'll bring it up.
Exactly. You only lose when you quit. If she were never to play that game again, then that would be a loss. So get up and try it again.
As a dad, what was your scariest moment, and what did this moment teach you, and how did it enable you to grow as a dad?
So it's not necessarily my scariest moment, but, and just thinking of, there was a friend of mine went to a retirement ceremony for the general. And, when he got up to do his speech, he had mentioned how one of his biggest regrets throughout his military career was that he never knew his children. He never knew his children. His career always took precedence. And it wasn't until his son had joined the Marine Corps that he actually got to know his son. They were able to get on that same vocabulary, to speak the same language. And then he actually got to know his son then. And to me, that hit me hard. Like, I don't want to neglect my family to pursue a career. Now, granted, the military obviously is extremely important to the security of this nation. So, it's something that I take seriously and I work hard at, but I don't want to put my family on the back burner solely for a career. So, I do my best to balance, and it is a balancing act. I don't know that there's necessarily a work-life balance. It's more like work-life balancing act. So at times there's certain seasons where I'm busy at work, but there's other times where it's not as busy. We're actually what they call no work November, with the Marine Corps Ball, the Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, there's a lot of holidays in there. So during this period, work kind of slows down, so you can take that time to really pour back into your family and spend time, and it's, and then again, on the weekends, I could spend those going out golfing and taking up the entire day golfing or kayak fishing by myself. But instead, I would rather be with my family, be with my kids, and incorporate them in some of the things. But there are times where it's good for us to get away and reconnect with other guys. I went on my run this morning with a friend that I met out here, and so that was good because you can grow and take the conversations that you have, take them home and put them to practice. So it's a balancing act.
Being on the other side of transitioning, and you're still active in being out, I think one of the things that men lose the most in that transition is reality of what tribes mean to us. And I've heard it explained best that for men on this earth for 2,000 years, lived in tribes. We hunted, we gathered, we fought, we learned, we grew together as a tribe. And only in the last 100 years did we somehow think we were smart enough to beat evolution. And in reality, men need to survive in tribes. We need that tribe to grow, to hold things up sometimes. I use colloquialism, reflecting on the Marine Corps. In the Marine Corps, we have a motto: if you can't lift it, you just don't have enough Marines trying. And I think about that as life in tribes, that if you have something so big in your life that you can't lift by yourself, that just means you don't have enough men or Marines trying to lift it with you. And that's why you need those tribes, is because on that run, if you had a bad day and you needed to let something go, that other Marine that you were running with was going to carry a little piece of that with you, and it was going to be that much lighter, and you were going to be like, I made it to the end, because you had other men in your life to lift with it. I like what you also said about seasons, thinking about the seasons, and I think about that very often now. I've reflected on that this year. Of many things in life, we try to do everything now, but if you ask, is this the right season of my life to do that? The answer, it quickly comes to yourself. Usually no. Like golfing, there's no reason why in your retirement you can't have the -3 that you want every day. It's just a different season of life. Well, you would like that now when you're able and young, but it's a different season, and you need to make an impact in a different area.
Yeah, absolutely. And even taking the seasons and kind of that balancing act and on a micro scale, Zig Ziglar, I love the guy. He's got his analogy of the wheel of life, I believe is what he calls it. But each spoke within that wheel represents different things like spirituality, family, career, physical fitness, and the list goes on. But he's talking about if you pour so much into one spoke and neglect the other spokes, your wheel is going to be out of balance. So, for example, if I pour everything I possibly have into my career, and I neglect physical fitness and I neglect my family, so eventually that, pouring too much in my career is going to cause me to neglect, going to working out. So then I'm going to start having health issues, and then I might start having marital issues or troubles with my kids or something. And guess what that's going to do? That's going to take away from what you held so precious to you, which was your career. And you can apply that so many other ways. You could do the opposite. Spent so much time with my family that I neglected my career. Well, guess what? Now you just got fired. Now you're having money problems, and the number one, cause of divorce is money fights, money problems. So it's all about, finding that balance. At certain seasons, you're going to have to pour more emphasis on others, but being able to recognize when you need to rebalance and pour back into those other spokes. So I think that's a great analogy.
I love that one. I remember when I figured that one out myself, that I've thought in my head like a flat tire. And when you don't realize your wheel of life has a flat tire, you can, every day you feel something's off and you just don't know what. And then the day you're like, my God, I got a flat tire on my wheel. And what I realized was it was compensate. I was compensating. So like whatever was negative in the wheel, I was reacting and drawing from other areas more than was required. And in many cases doing detriment to different things. And it was just compensating. When your wash machine gets out of balance, you try to do other things to keep it in balance instead of trying to focus on the part of your life.
Yep, absolutely. Fixing the symptom rather than the problem.
We kind of touched on this already, but I'll give you a chance to answer. What do you want your family's legacy to be? What do you want people to say when they hear the Huston name? What do they want? What kind of words do you want people to describe you and your kids and your family? So
I'm always constantly telling my kids, and we incorporated this into our prayer as well as a family, but we want to be an encouragement to others. And I don't want our family to be selfish. We went through Dave Ramsey's program and paid off an immense amount of debt in a short amount of period. We poured into that. And through it, I guess the reason why we did that, which kept us motivated and kept us focused on that goal, is because we want to leave a legacy where we are helping other people. To be able to give to other people is one of the greatest gifts that you could ever receive. Seeing a needy family that you've been able to impact, even if it's anonymously, sometimes that's the greatest thing. Looking, contributing to someone and seeing how much it's affected them and helped them. That's one of the greatest gifts. So I'm trying to teach my kids the importance of helping others, being an encouragement to others, and not being selfish. I guess that would be the legacy that I want our family to have.
I love that. And recently I heard a speech, it was called Be the Rainbow to Someone's Storm. And rainbows only come after storms. And so I use this analogy to my daughter, and I was like, and I was trying to teach her kindness, which she understands, but this one really has sunk in. Like every day she'll talk about, I gave away 3 rainbows, and she'll find people that are having a storm, and she'll be the rainbow and do something kind. And it's really silly stuff for like kids. It's not that impactful, but she describes it as being the rainbow, and that is huge. And like every day she's talked about like, oh, I gave away 3 rainbows. And the other day she said she gave away a double rainbow. So like somehow this rainbow analogy is breaking through the kid mentality and quickly, because they love rainbows. So they understand what they do, and they hate storms. So they understand the power of a rainbow. And I've really enjoyed hearing the stories every day about what she's been doing at school with being.
I'm going to incorporate that. I like that. That's
be
really,
the rainbow
really
to
good.
Someone's storm.
That is really good.
And even the pot of gold is the person that's giving the rainbow. They're the pot of gold. You can never find your own gold. It's actually someone else bringing it to you.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome.
What do you think the biggest difference in the dad you are today versus 5 years ago?
Well, 5 years ago, I only had one son. And so now we've added to our little family. And I think learning how to balance enough quality time amongst all of my children, and not focusing only on my oldest son or my youngest daughter, but being able to pour into each of their lives, and even doing something simple where I spend, take one, like I said, I took one of my kids to Taco Bell. Since we've been in Okinawa, I took, one of my sons to one of the Japanese malls, and we went and ate at a Mr. Donut together. And that was the biggest, he kept talking about that. And next on my list is to take my daughter to the botanical gardens, which I think you introduced me to. But like I said,
think that was our first road trip together, or our first field trip.
I think it was.
I still got our crazy picture next to the with the glasses.
That's right. I forgot about that one. But yeah, so being able to spread loads of love. But then also, I guess, not necessarily with that, but with my wife, understanding the importance that my children need to see that I love my wife. And a lot of people can get that out of whack, but I honestly, and I went through a course when we were in Corpus Christi. Children thrive when they see that their mom and dad are a cohesive unit, working together and love each other. They actually thrive under that environment. But when there's insecurities, like they don't see their mom and dad loving each other, a lot of problematic issues can come up from that, and stem from they want to know that everything is okay between mom and dad. And when that environment is fostered and it's apparent every day of their lives, that's when they thrive. So we know, in order to be more effective dads, we need to be effective husbands. That's extremely important. So, and it's very tough. We have a hectic job that we have to do, and then come home, and then we got to pour into our families. But I mean, that's why we have broad shoulders. So, and then again, what you mentioned, that's why we have tribes. Other guys that we can go to with struggles. When we need encouragement. I've heard a saying in the real estate investing realm that I'm in. Your net worth is in your network. So if the people that you're hanging out with, the guys that you're hanging out, are they building you up, or are they tearing you down? With the negative talk and just they're not bringing any positive influences in your life. So I believe that's key.
That leads us into our next question. For other dads looking to come home to their marriage, what advice would you give? So again, what I kind of led off with was, and I'm guilty of it, and I'm a hypocrite at times when I was talking about this, and I need to continue to work on it. Was put that smartphone down. Don't let that steal time away from your spouse, from your kids. You have for us, we homeschool actually. So my wife doesn't really get a lot of adult conversations throughout the day. It's a lot of the children, childrenisms, if that's what you would call, a lot of the why questions, and dealing with, bickering back and forth between the siblings, which is going to happen. So for me to not give her a chance to do an adult conversation, if I've got my nose on my smartphone, that's neglecting her. So for coming home for me, I purposely make time to sit down with her. And one of the things that we'd heard
through that course I kind of mentioned before, the parenting course, and the children thriving with a mom and dad that are a cohesive unit, they mentioned a concept of couch time, where the mom and dad, it could be anything, but in this case, it's sitting literally on a couch and talking about each other's day with each other. And the kids are awake. It's not putting the kids to bed, so the distractions are away. Like, the kids need to see this, that mom and dad are talking. This is not a time to interrupt them, unless it's what the corpsmen say, life, limb, or eyesight. You know, if a kid's put their hand in a blender or their garbage disposal, yes, come get us. But you know, the small things, do not interrupt us. This is mommy, daddy time. This is, you know, our time to be a husband and wife. So having that intentional time with your spouse is key to, you know, family cohesiveness.
I love that. And I think your perspective would be good for the audience of, I've heard that you never can stop dating your wife. That the moment you stop dating your wife is the day you start taking that treachery road to somewhere where you don't want to be. Yeah. And as a busy military family, what are ways that you've continued to date your wife? So
again, going back to what you talked about, we try to do extravagant things with our kids, you know, it doesn't even have to be that with your wife. So, you know, granted, it's nice to do that every once in a while. But we'll put, you know, sometimes as simple as putting the kids to bed and we break out the deck of cards and we'll just play some card games, you know, where it's face-to-face time. And I was actually listening to a podcast today. It's actually a farming podcast, but they were bringing up, you know, in the off season of the farming, the seasons where it gets a little bit lighter on the work level. One of the farmers likes to break out board games, and they'll play these board games. And they kind of, you know, re-sparked the interest in getting board games to back out and playing with my wife at the end of the day after the kids have gone to bed. And we can consider that a date night. You're just spending quality time face to face. You know, movies are great every once in a while, but I just talked to my wife today that I want to get away from binge watching. You know, we like The Office, but it's easy to get into those things. But what are you doing? You're not really conversing. You know, you're just watching something together. You're not growing together, really. Yeah, sure, you're sharing a laugh, which is important. But and my wife has mentioned times where she just loves to go to, you know, we'd go to some baseball games or something like that together. And it's times where you can just sit and talk. Yeah, you're watching a game, but you can sit and talk through a game. So it's just doing those small things. You know, we like card games. I'm going to get our family back into board games. And, yeah. So there's some.
And I think knowing your wife's love language is critical to those decisions as well. Yeah. Knowing where to put the time of. Sounds like yours is quality time, quality time.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember all 5 of them. I know Touch is one of them, and yeah, it's a good book. I obviously need to freshen back up on that one.
And freshening back up on the military edition recently.
Hey, there you go. Nice.
I read the first one for, and then I saw this military one, and I was like, I think it's time to bring it up.
There you go.
What is a resource or a book you would recommend to other military veterans' dads, and why?
So when I was stationed in Maryland, our commanding officer had a previous contact that he'd worked with, I think in the Pentagon, but a retired lieutenant colonel named Danny White wrote a book called A Widower's Walk. So there's the cover right there. And so he came to do a public speech, and the book is an autobiography of a season in his life. He's Marine Corps, lieutenant colonel, like I mentioned, but extremely short synopsis. He was PCSing with his family from California to Missouri, and during that road trip, he was in the U-Haul. His wife and his pregnant wife and his kid was in the car in their POV behind him. He looked in the rearview mirror in time to see her veer off the road. Her car flipped, and he lost his pregnant wife and his oldest son, who was, I think, 5 or 7 years old, something like that. And, you know, his life changed just like that. And in his book, he goes into detail about, you know, basically being a workaholic. You know, yes, our mission's important, and he would work hard during that, but he said he would go above and beyond what was actually absolutely needed, just in the name of doing work and doing, you know, exceptionally, you know, above and beyond what other people were doing. And so he talks about his journey of learning how fragile life is and you know, maintaining a better balance between your career and your family and pouring in your family. So a really good book. Highly recommend him. I actually recommend him for your podcast at some point. I'll try to work some connections. I know the people that know him. So I think he'd be a great a great person for you to interview for this podcast, because I learned a lot. I was actually able to speak to him one-on-one afterwards about his book, and because I was struggling with that at times, letting the career get in front of my family.
I'm sure now you struggle even just PCSing yourself even. You're a PCSer in the U-Haul yourself.
Yeah. I joked that Dave Ramsey and Diddy Moves got us out of debt because we made a lot of money during that time that we put right on our debt. But, yeah, there were times where a little nervous. A great book, great point of contact. I'll try to put you in contact because I know your listeners would definitely benefit from him.
Well, thank you for the share, and thank you for coming on for the show. I've really loved catching up. It was just like old times. We really haven't seen face-to-face for, I think, almost 2.5 years since I caught up with you in Corpus Christi for an afternoon smoker. I was going to ask you, how do you smoke in beef Okinawa now? Were you able to PCS your egg?
So I did not PCS with my big green egg. I didn't want to take a chance on the movers shattering a ceramic grill, which is very expensive. I did bring my electric smoker, and I actually have a Boston Butt on right now that I'm smoking for pulled pork for our sloppy nachos in celebration of the Ohio State University beating Michigan tonight, which I have to watch at 2 a.m., and I'm pulling an all-nighter. So that's how dedicated I am.
Nice. Bet you don't miss those nighttime football games.
No, not necessarily, but you do what you got to do.
You were always a diehard sports fan, especially the Ohio State fan as well. And now that you went to school there, it's even more ingrained into your blood.
Yeah, I can't get away. It bleeds harder than gray.
Well, Kyle, thank you for coming on the show, and I really appreciate spending time with you.
Absolutely, Ben. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm looking forward to learning from your other listener, your other podcasts as well. This is a great topic. It's very important, and I wish you good luck, and stay in contact.
That's a wrap, and thank you for listening to today's show, and I really hope you enjoyed it. The lifeblood of any new podcast are the reviews. If you haven't reviewed the podcast yet on iTunes, I would really appreciate it, and you will help us get the message out to even more military veteran dads. As John Maxwell says, if there is hope in the future, there is power in the present. Dads, it's time to come home.